We are going to jump in. This is 10 ways to win in a multiple offer situation. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to walk through a PowerPoint presentation. And by the way, I'm going to have this whole presentation available for anybody that would like to download it. So I'll give you some instructions right after the webinar. I'll email them to you, how you can download this. And some of our agents are going to use this for direct response marketing. So you could apply this in your own market, because there's a lot of markets where multiple offers are becoming super common. And it's going to be a really powerful tool to be a lead magnet. If you can say, hey, I'm going to show you how you win in a multiple offer situation, and you modify this for a buyer to watch. And you could use this PowerPoint presentation yourself right in your market. So I want to make that offer for you. So for anybody that would like to use it in that way, you'll be able to. Well, let's jump in here, because a lot of agents that I coach from around the country have come to me and said, Jim, how do I deal with multiple offers in my market? I have one agent up in Southern California, had 75 offers he was competing with on one transaction. So the only person who was sure that they got a sale was a listing agent. 75 other agents did some work there, and not all of them, of course, got paid. Only one buyer's agent got paid. So we want to make sure that when we are representing buyers, we're doing everything we can to get in position to win. So we're going to look at some ways that we can do that today, but we're going to start by looking at what's happening in the marketplace really quickly. So we know supply and demand are what creates a market of any kind. And so when we have low supply and high demand, that's when we get into multiple offer situations, where you have a lot of buyers that are looking and competing for the limited supply of products in the marketplace. So you would assume that with a COVID crisis that you would have a piling up of listing inventory. That's just not happened. What's happened is people have held back from putting in their homes on the market, which has caused supply to be depressed, but the number of buyers has been relatively stable. We've had a huge increase in demand. So here's the supply chain though. If you look at last year at this time, we had 1,900,000 listings, which was still low at that time. Comparatively, this year, we almost have 400,000 less listings, 1,000,005 listings, and that's an all-time low for listings in June. Never recorded this low by NAR. So that's huge. Then we look at demand. On the demand side, you can see what happened with the number of sales. This is number of units closing throughout the year. What's happened is we had a huge crash, as you'd expect during COVID right in the beginning, February, March, but it's climbed right back up. It's almost vertical in the amount of demand that we have for housing. So we're back up to 4.7 million unit pace, and that's just going to keep climbing right now. We're seeing a huge surge across the country with huge demand. So the question that a lot of people will ask is, okay, Jim, where is this demand coming from? Who's out here buying homes? Because we're seeing people laid off, we're seeing unemployment numbers rising. Well, there's a lot of people that are now qualifying for loans that would never be able to qualify before. And the reason is, we know, is low interest rates. And so we're seeing still homeowner or home families being put together, what we call family units being created every day. So when college kids graduate, when high school kids graduate and they go off on their own, that's creating a household unit, right? Those are always being created no matter what. And so we've have this situation where you have a lot of people that may have been renters for a long time, or maybe just leaving college, that would have normally rented or have been renting, that suddenly decide, wait a second, interest rates have hit at such a low, I'm going to go out and buy a house. And you can see what's happened. Home ownership rates going almost vertical up to 67.9%. We haven't seen that rate until all the way back in like 2003, 2004. And then if you go back behind that, all the way back into the 80s, we haven't seen that level of home ownership. So huge amount of home ownership, people coming in and saying, hey, I can finally afford to buy. And a lot of this is first-time home buyers. 35% of the market today is first-time home buyers. Now, first-time home buyers are an older generation than we've ever seen. When I grew up, we would buy a home. I bought my first home at 19. Today, the average age of a first-time home buyer is in their 30s. So they've gone through college, they've gotten married, they maybe even have kids, and now they're buying houses, right? So it's interesting to see how the dynamics have changed over time, but huge amount of first-time homebuyer activity right now too. And here's the reason, as I mentioned, interest rates are driving this, because what's happened is we've seen an inverse in the amount it costs to rent a house per month versus what it costs to buy a house per month. Now this is almost always, it's cheaper to buy on a monthly basis than to, to rent than to buy. It's only a few times in history where you'll see them cross. And right now they crossed because interest rates have hit that new low. So it costs on average, now we know there's rents that are higher across the country, but on average, $1,036 to buy a house right now, $1,045 to rent a house right now. So it's cheaper to buy than to rent, which is crazy, but that's the truth of the matter. Now, this is an interesting graph right here, which shows the history of interest rates through 1350. This is by far the longest period of time that I think anybody has studied interest rates, going all the way back to Dutch perpetual bonds in the 1350s. And you can see what interest rates have done all over this time. And look at where we're at today, all the way down into 2000, where they got that black circle there. It's showing interest rates are basically at a 600-year low. We're talking about, we often say it's a 50-year low, it's a 60-year low. We're really at a 600-year low when it comes to interest rates, when you really dial it in and look at it closely. This is unprecedented, and that's why you're seeing buyers being activated where they may have been a little sleepy before. They're coming into the market despite the fact that we're in a worldwide pandemic where you'd think they'd be staying home. They're going out and buying homes. But here's another factor that's not being talked about. Because we're stuck in our homes, we're becoming very home sensitive, and we're saying to ourselves, I don't want to be in an apartment. I don't want to be in a duplex. I don't want somebody over me or under me. I want to be in my own unit, and I want a bigger space than what I've been used to because I'm trapped in my house. That's another driving force that's not as often talked about, but it is a true driving force in the market today. So just to put this in perspective really quickly, and then we're going to move into really tactical data. Here's how interest rates impact monthly housing payments. So in the 1970s, the average interest rate was 8.86, 1980s, 12.7, 1990s, 8.12, the 2000s were 6. We thought that was a miracle, it's 6%. 2010s was an average of 3.9. Today, the average interest rate is actually lower than this. It's now below 3%. This is a little bit dated material. So, but when you put this in perspective of what that means to your payment, then you look at the number below. So this is a mortgage payment based on a $200,000 mortgage, right? Fully amortized for 30 years. What that looks like in your payment. Look at the dramatic differences between the 1970s, the 80s, and today. 70s, you would have paid $1,500 for that. In the 80s, you would have paid $2,100, but all the way to today, $894. And it's actually less than that today because interest rates have even come down from there. So that's just an amazing number. It's a driving force in our market. And as the interest rates go down, people's buying power goes up, meaning that instead of maybe only being able to afford a $200,000 house because your payment was $1,500, now you might be able to afford a $400,000 house because if you doubled that, your payment's still about $1,700 for a $400,000 house. So your buying power goes way up. So it's definitely a driver in the market. Now, when we go deeper into this, when we start to say, okay, Jim, what does that mean on the side of the seller? What's happening with sellers in our market? Well, today sellers are getting a tremendous amount of activity because fewer sellers are going on the market because of COVID. They're a little nervous. They don't want to be necessarily exposing themselves to things. And so a lot of people have pushed the pause button on listing. More people are starting to come to market now, but in the beginning, they certainly pushed the pause button. But that caused kind of this interesting dynamic where less listings in the market, huge buyer demand. So every listing that is on the market then gets a tremendous amount of attention. And so now we're seeing 3 offers right now on average per listing that's coming out. 3 offers on average. Now some get a lot more, some get less, but that's the average. But here's the really interesting stat that goes along with that, which is causing us to see multiple offers on almost every listing that comes out that's at least reasonably priced in decent areas. Here's the latest stats from Redfin. It shows nationally listings, and this is compared to year. The blue line is last year at the same time. The red line is this year. 49.4% of listings are getting multiple offers. 49.4. So it's at least a 50-50 coin toss for you to get in a position where your buyers are going to be competing with another buyer. I'm going to say it's probably even higher than this. This was a couple months back. It's probably going to be creeping up closer to 60 to 70% of the time. You're going to be in a multiple offer situation. So with that in mind, we have to say, if I know, or it's highly likely that I'm going to be in a multiple offer situation. What do I do? How do I address this? What can I do to put my buyers in a position to win? Now, if you guys are watching this, I'm going to go through a lot of tactical data right now that I picked up through 31 years of practice. If you don't know who I am, I work with and am a managing principal broker of a company in Southern Oregon. We are on track to do about $1 billion in sales this year. 2,500 transactions last year. We've got a great crew of about 180 brokers in Southern Oregon. But I've been practicing for 31 years, but more importantly, I've been networking with some of the top producers in the country through my coaching company, eRealEstateCoach.com. And I pick up their best ideas and then I deliver them to you guys here. So we're going to jump into some real tactical, simple to implement ideas on what you can do. The first step when you're in a market like this is to embrace the concept that what you have to do is you've got to start training your buyers. And this could be called a buyer consultation for them, but what you're looking at it is as buyer training. And what I mean by that is, here's the worst thing you can do as an agent. You get a phone call from a buyer, they want to go out and look at a property, you rush out, you show it to them, they're interested, they say, oh my gosh, we want to buy this, and you say, okay, great, we got 25 offers we're competing with, and they don't know what to do, they don't know who to trust, they don't know if you're telling them the truth, they don't know how they should go about navigating the situation because you haven't taken any time to do a buyer consultation. The professional agents, the agents at the top of their game, closing hundreds of deals a year, are taking a few minutes to do a buyer consultation, which doesn't have to be more than 20 or 30 minutes, but it educates the buyer on the market and the market conditions and puts you in a position to be the expert and the trusted advisor in the situation, which is what you need to be. So how do you introduce this conversation? The best way is just to say, hey, before we go out and look at that property, would you be willing to spend 5-10 minutes with me at the office? Just want to share with you how I work, but more importantly, what's going on with the market. If they say no, I'd rather just go see the property, no problem. I can show you the house. But right after that, would you mind just let me, even at the house, spend 5-10 minutes to show you how I work and show you what's going on with the market? Because it's really important to understand what's happening. Markets have really changed over the last couple of months. Really important. Whether you work with me or not, it's important to check it out. Most people say yes to that. If they say no, it's probably a red flag. It's something you don't want to work with anyway. But what are you educating them about? So here's what you're going to educate them. You're going to give them easily digestible visuals. So you're going to visualize the market for them, and you're going to show them in black and white what's happening. Not just tell them, but show them, because they may not believe you if you just tell them. You got to show them in black and white what's happening. Then you have to talk about the probability based on that data of the fact that they may be competing in a multiple offer situation. Some buyers believe that because of COVID, they can come in and lowball, they can discount, that they're not going to be competing with anybody that's like 2009, 2010, where there's a plethora of houses and tons of foreclosures. A lot of buyers come to the market with that expectation, so we've got to educate them. We need to talk about their lender. Are they working with an online lender and a local lender, and what the difference is when they are actually competing with other offers? The pre-qualification process versus the pre-approval process. That having, if they're a cash buyer, the idea of having proof of funds right there with them now before they go out and find a house, so that when they write an offer, they can present it to the seller in real time and not have any delay. And then the really important thing here is the ability, is the ability to move quickly, which means communication with the agent in real time. Because if you're competing with 20 other offers and that listing agent calls you and says, would you guys be willing to bend on this? You got to be able to act rapidly, and that's super important. So these are the conversations that we need to begin having. So I'm going to walk you through those conversations and how they look in the real world. First, starting with easily digestible visuals. So this is an example of an easily digestible visual. Now, you can find visuals in a lot of different places. I'm going to give you a few places to find them. One is the Realtor organization provides us a lot of great visuals. So if you navigate to nar.realtor and you go to browse, click browse, and you go to the Economist Outlook blog, which is one of their blogs, the Economist Outlook blog, they provide incredible visuals every single month on every aspect of the market, free of charge, because you're a realtor. Okay, so you can download those and you can put them in your little library, right? You can store them on your computer or physically print them so you have them with you. Another place that we like to use at my company, we're a member of a company called TrendGraphics.com, which if you're a member of a franchise, a lot of franchises are members of Trend Graphics. You can't join as an individual, your office has to join, but our office happens to have this, and we can really show some great data here. This is an example. It shows in the kind of the light green line in my little area of the world, 97524. I live in Eagle Point, Oregon. What's happening here, and it shows it through June. So June in the light green bar shows how many listings are on the market. You can see the trend line going down, 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 down. There's 52 active listings in Eagle Point. The red line is the number of pending transactions, so 37 pending transactions, so that's queuing up. And then the dark green is showing the number of closings, 25 closings in June. So that's a good representation of the market, what's happening, and being able to educate buyers as you're talking to them. This is a representation of what people are getting on a price per square foot basis in the market. Again, educating the buyer. Now, if you don't have access to Trend Graphics, and maybe for some reason you don't like the data at nar.realtor and the Economist blog, you can also go to our arch enemy in the industry, Zillow, which also has great data. So if you go to Zillow.com and you look up and research home values in your hometown, I just picked Medford, Oregon, for instance, it will deliver to you a bunch of data points that again, can be used with your buyer. So this one shows what's happening with average prices, and it actually goes further. It forecasts in the future what they think is going to happen with pricing. So that's another place you can find data. This one shows the price per square foot in the market. But here's one that I like, and this is what we deliver to our friends on the path. This is my coaching platform. We give them this spreadsheet which they can build out what we call market snapshot. And this market snapshot is a great visual representation of what's happening in the market, and it's full of great data. And it's very simple to put together. You put it together every month, and then you have it with you, and it's a differentiator in the market. But let me show you what it shows. So it's a price band breakdown, which is unique. It breaks the market down by price. So you can see the price ranges on the left, and then it shows the number of active listings that were active at the first of the month. And then it shows pending transactions, and then it shows, you divide those numbers into each other, the months of supply. So if I have a buyer that's in the 250 to 350 range, I'll say, well, check it out. Here's what's happening in our market in that price range. Last month, there was 82 listings that came on the market, but we sold 147 listings when pending in that price range. So not only did they soak up every single listing that came on the market, they also soak up some of those other listings that may have been sitting in the market a little bit. So there's a half a month supply of that. So basically, we're sold out in that price category. Meaning if all realtors stop taking listings in a half a month, 15 days, every listing in the market will be sold out. That's the way we explain it. On the $350,000 to $500,000 range, 136 listings came on the market, 115 went pending. We have about a month's supply, month 0.2, about 40 days if all realtors stop taking listing. By the way, the balance point for a market where it's kind of balanced between buyers and sellers, it's 6 months of supply. So you can see that we are very undersupplied, which means there's a lot of competition in the marketplace. Now, see, I'm educating the buyer when I go through those statistics. Now, you could say, Jim, I don't want to do any of that. If you don't do that, if you don't educate your buyer, what's going to happen is they are not going to know the backstory of the market, and they're going to come into every situation behind the 8 ball. Remember, if you have 20 other buyers or 30 other buyers on this house, you want to be having your buyer be the most educated person in the room because you've taken some time to show them what's happening, which leads us to the 100% plus conversation. So in most cases, when you're in a multiple offer situation, there's a reason. The reason why you're in a multiple offer situation is because that the home has been priced pretty close to where it should be. Otherwise, there wouldn't be multiple offers. So it's in a great location, or it's well priced, or both, which is causing a lot of buyer activity, which is causing a lot of offers to come in, which means that the home is probably going to go for more than full price. How do you explain that to a buyer in a way that they're going to accept it, and more importantly, act on your advice? So here's my way that I've taken from other top producers from around the country. What we say is this: hey, because interest rates have hit a 60-year low, buyers have really come out in force. 49% of sellers are receiving multiple offers from buyers. So here's what's happening right in our market. And then you localize the information with hyper-local information. So on average in our market, sellers are receiving, and then I would plug in my own Jackson County numbers. For me, I would say they're receiving about 97% of list price. Some get way more. Some get 105%. Some get a little less, but on average, it's 97% of their purchase price. But this is trending up. Most buyers that are the winning bidder are coming in at full price or using what we call an escalation clause to beat the next highest bidder. Now, what I do to make sure we're not overpaying for a home is to do an in-depth CMA. I look at every property that's sold or gone pending in the area over the past 6 months and give you a complete analysis of what's happening in the market, and as well as a payment breakdown from our lender. So you're going to share with them what's happening in the market. You're going to make them feel good that you're not just trying to lead them down a path here. You're going to do a buyer CMA, and you're going to educate them on the market. But there is a good possibility that they may have to pay more than 100% in order to secure that home. Which leads us, and I mentioned it in this clause or this conversation, to the escalation clause. Now, escalation clauses are something we need to be using on a regular basis if we're going to lock up buyers into their home that they want, the home of their dreams, and not get caught off guard when you have 10 other offers, 5 of them are using escalation clauses and you aren't, and you get bumped out. You want to be one of the ones that's a contender so you can get your buyers in position. But how do you explain it? First of all, what is it, and how do you explain it? So an escalation clause, if you've never seen one or used one, is market specific. So I'm showing you one for Oregon. You would need to look up in your own state, in your own market, and talk to your brokerage leader about what that looks like for you in your area. So for us in our area, what it is a document that just outlines that a buyer is willing to go up above their initial offer by $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 increments above the next competing offer. So let's just give you an example. They offer $300,000. Another offer comes in at $305,000. The escalation clause says, I will go up by $2,000 above your nearest competitive offer. So if they were at $305,000, we'll go to $307,000. If they came at $307,000, we'll come to $309,000. If they came to $309,000, we'll go to $311,000. Now you might naturally say, Jim, where does it end? You put a cap on it. There's a cap on the escalation. So maybe your cap is $325,000 or $320,000, and there's a cap there. So you have to talk about this escalation clause in the beginning of your relationship. Because if you try to bring this up at the end, when you're actually found the property of these buyers' dreams, they're going to feel like you're pressing them and you're giving them some kind of high pressure close. And that's the last thing you want. You don't want them to have any level of distrust with you. You want them to feel completely comfortable and that they're completely confident that you have their best interest at heart, right? And so you bring it up early. And so here's how you bring it up early. You say, hey, because we're seeing so much competition in the market, one tool that some buyers are using frequently is something called an escalation clause I mentioned a minute ago. Have you ever heard of that? And you let them say, they may have heard of it. They may have used it. And if they have, that makes it way easier. If they haven't, they say, no, you can say, so what it is, it's a document that says you're going to beat the next highest offer if we're in a multiple offer situation by a predetermined amount. And that could be like $1,000, $500, $2,000. And it's a certain, you set the limit. And it's a great way to clear out the competition if you're comfortable with it. Not every buyer is comfortable with it. My hope is that we're not competing with anyone, but if we are, it's something we can have in our back pocket. So now we just brought it out. By the way, I used to teach the ABR class for the National Association of Realtors for years. And during the ABR class, we often educated our students that a good idea, especially with first-time home buyers and even with experienced buyers, is when you begin working with them to give them every form that they're eventually going to sign as a buyer in advance. So you give them a buyer package and you say, listen, here's all the documents that we will be using when we find your home. So assumptive close, these are the documents we will be using when we find your home. Included in that is something called an escalation clause. Let me just explain what that means. And then you can use this verbiage. Then they have it, they can review it, and it takes out the fear of something new when they get to that table and are signing documents. The worst thing you can do, the worst way you can throw a wet blanket or ice cold water on someone right after they got to an emotional high, they're excited about a house, they're stoked, they're fired up, and they're ready to write an offer. You come back to the office and you lay out 25 pages for them to sign that they've never seen before. They get scared, they get nervous, and then they get confused. And the confused mind says, no, we want to take all that away. We want to destigmatize everything, really be really clear, give people these things right up front so they feel more comfortable about it. Now, we're going to move into how we interact with the other side. This is really important. By the way, as we go through this, and I see several of you are watching here, that if you have a question, I'm more than happy to answer any question in real time. So just shoot me the question, I'll see it, and we'll get these questions answered as we go. So feel free. So the first impression, what do I mean by that? The first impression. So we want to create a positive, professional, collaborative relationship with realtors, not adversarial. The worst mistake, a rookie mistake I see agents making with each other is taking on this adversarial position. Do you want to work with somebody that you're fighting with when you've got 20 other choices? No. If you got 20 other offers to choose from and this guy or gal is a real pain in your side, a thorn, and is really kind of a squeaky wheel and hard to deal with and adversarial, you're not going to work with them. You're going to choose somebody that you can collaborate with, somebody that you feel comfortable with, somebody that you feel like you can cooperate with. And I just had one of our brokers in my office, Terry Rasmussen, come to me and tell me a story exactly of that, where he was working on a multiple offer situation. The agent came back to him and said, Terry, we had other offers, but honestly, and they were better, but honestly, I told my sellers, I much prefer to work with you. You're professional, you're experienced, you know how to get deals closed, and I just feel more comfortable working with you, so we're going to accept your offer. That's the kind of relationship you want to create in the marketplace, and you want to be known for being that kind of agent. Remember this, when you're in a transaction, and we all get in transactions that are negative or bad experiences, just remember, you will go back into transaction with that person again. So be very careful of how you're treating an agent in any given transaction. No one transaction is worth your relationship with an agent, because you will circle back and work with them. You can say you won't, but you will. There is no avoiding it in the marketplace. So here's what you do. First thing is, when you're talking to people and you're engaging on a listing, congratulate them on taking an amazing listing and taking a listing at all in this market, which is difficult. Praise them, stroke their ego. Your photos look amazing. I can't believe how you got that great elevation. That pool shot coming down, that dust shot looked fantastic. Your video looked incredible. Your flyers are killer, spot on. Then you're going to ask them to help you. How do you do that? You say, hey, John, I really want to sell this house because I want to work with you. Tell me anything you can that will help me sell this house, because I think this is a beautiful listing. Is there anything you can tell me that's maybe not on the listing that maybe influence my buyer, because I really want to sell it? Let them help them sell that property. You can couch it a little bit by saying, well, my buyer's looking at 2 or 3 properties. They prefer yours, but they got a really strong second choice. I'd rather sell yours. Help me sell it, would you? So that's one way to do it. After you're showing, but before you've written an offer, send them a quick thank you card. And if you have an assistant, just have your assistant do it. Thank you for taking such a nice listing. Really enjoyed showing it. Wish you the best. Maybe I hope I can write an offer on it. That's it, right? And then here's something else that takes it to a whole nother level, is to think about leaving a showing thank you for the seller. Very subtle, but it's a differentiator, and it's just super simple. You never want to be accused of trying to build a relationship with the seller, but you're just setting yourself apart in the market. Here's an example. These Swanson and Sons cards are square cards, so they're already different, right? They're already going to stand out in a crowd. And on the back, if you can imagine, just saying, thank you for allowing us to show your home today. Beautiful home, signed. That's it. Going to set you apart from that 2-second little note on the back of your card. And that's all you got to do. First impression. Now, if your buyer, is interested in this home, what's the next step? The next step is to get into deep research. What does deep research mean? Now, a lot of you are going to feel pressure because you're going to say, there's a ton of offers coming in. The listing agent may have told you, hey, we got multiple offers happening. The next question out of your mouth should be this: oh, that's great. I think we're going to write an offer on it as well. But when are you going to be reviewing those offers? How long do I have? Find out what the deadlines are. Because if they're receiving multiple offers, they're not just going to cling on to one immediately. Normally, they're going to say, oh, we're going to review them Monday, and then we're going to decide by Tuesday at 5. They're going to give you some kind of timeline. Get the timeline and then do your research. Don't rush it if you don't have to rush it. Sometimes you do, but if you don't, you want to get into this deep research. First step, as we've all been trained to do, is to do a buyer CMA. An in-depth buyer CMA, same thing you do for a seller if you're taking a listing, looking at solds, looking at pendings, looking at active listings, even maybe looking at expired listings. Get the buyer in a position where they understand the market. Maybe do it in your office, have them up on the big screen if you can, and show the buyer what's happening in the marketplace. Also, when you're doing that CMA, when you're looking at the sold properties, really important to point out that the sold properties are always looking in the past. They're 2 or 3 months out behind the curve. The pending properties are like real time now. That's why we put more weight on pendings when we're writing offers than we do on solds, because that's in the history. If we're trending up and prices are rising, we'll want to look at those pending listings really, really carefully. The other thing is, on the sold properties though, check out how long they were on the market. Were they in the market 2 days, 3 days, 5 days? If most of the solds are on the market in a very short period of time, point that out to your buyer. Well, these 3 listings all sold in less than a week. So this one's probably going to sell in less than a week too. We need to come in really strong. We're not going to get a second bite at the apple here. Then you want to dig deeper, look at the seller, what the seller paid for the property. Sometimes you can find that with your county records. I'm going to give you another resource here too. You want to look at the history of the property. In other words, in the MLS system, look at the last time it was sold. How long was it on the market? You know, what's the history of the property in the market? If you can find it, look at the last mortgage that the sellers took out. Again, I'm going to give you a resource for that as well here in just a second. The tax history, the permit history, the utility costs, the neighborhood trends, all important pieces of data for your buyer to make an informed decision, but more importantly, position you as somebody who really cares about them and is an expert on digging deep into the properties. So a couple of resources for you. One is NARRPR.com. If you haven't used the system, it's free to you as a realtor. It's one of our realtor resources, and it's a real property resource is what that RPR means. And so you can dig in, type in an address. By the way, you just have to have your NERDS ID to sign into this if you've never done it before. But once you sign in and you pull up a property, then you can do a lot of research on the property. Here's an example. This is a one property that I own in Eagle Point, and it shows what their automated valuation model believes the home is to be worth. But then it goes deeper and it shows the history of the property, and you can see there's a button up here that says history. If you click that history, boom, you get this information. It shows the last time it sold, which is the warranty deed of $450, and then it also shows the last mortgage that was taken out on the property, which shows there as a conventional $360,000 loan. So good information for your buyer to know, good information for you to know, and just relevant real-time data. It also gives you a lot more information in here. We don't have time to cover it all, but that's just a couple of pieces that you can pull out from NAR.RPR. Now, what you're going to do next is you're going to want to ask questions if your buyer is interested in writing an offer. You want to ask questions of a listing agent. Now, some listing agents are going to be more open to answering these questions than others. Sometimes it's going to have to do with your relationship. Sometimes it's just their attitude. Sometimes it's how they rolled out of bed in the morning. But remember this, you have a fiduciary responsibility to ask questions of the other side. It's a fiduciary responsibility. Your job is to ask questions of the other side. By the way, your entire approach to a multiple offer situation should be a system that you follow every single time. So you can't control outcome, but you can control your system, your approach. If you want to be a master negotiator, you have to control your system, your approach to the process, right? So I always talk about like a Stephen King or a Michelangelo, some of these master creators, people that have been creating lots of things, Da Vinci, and they just do it over and over and over again. How do they create masterpieces one after another, after another, after another? The reason is they have a system. They're working a system, right? And we need to work a system, a process every single time. One of those processes is asking questions of the listing agent. So here's an example of questions that you might ask that listing agent. Hey, can you share with me if you have any other offers on the property? Most listing agents will answer that. And they'll say yes or no. If they say yes, it could say, oh, how many do you have? I can dig deeper. I can peel the onion. Oh, great. Anybody from your own office? Now, I could ask that or I could not, but I think it's interesting. Mike Curlinger raised his hand. Go ahead and, I don't know if you can unmute yourself or not, Mike. Can you? Nope, he's got his chat up here. Hold on a second. Oh, Mike, that was accidental. Okay, that's okay. If you do have a question, you can just raise your hand and I'll try to call on you. So can you share with me if you have any other offers on the property? Second, are any offers over full price? That's a great question to ask. Most agents will answer that because you're not revealing anything. Yes, they are. Now you know where you're at. So if you come in for less for the full price, it's a waste of time, and you can convey that to your buyer. Now, would some agents lie? It's possible that they would, but they would get caught in that lie when the MLS shows the sold price eventually. And if they did that to you once, then you know never to trust them again. And in my experience, most agents don't lie about that. And then the next question, which is never asked. This is a magic question that you got to start asking. Are there any escalation clauses in play? If they say yes, now you know you've got some fierce competition, right? So here's another one. Is there anything other than money that would be important to the seller in an offer, like the timeline? Do they have they already find a replacement home? Inclusions, exclusions, those kinds of things. Which leads me to the fourth question, which is right along that. Has the seller already located their next home? Where do they move into? Which would also reveal some motivation. That's asking the motivation question without asking the motivation question. Some agents just go right to, why are the seller selling? And the agent has been trained to respond, I can't answer that, because that's a motivation question. But when you say, have the sellers already located another home, they may get there anyway. They may say, well, yeah, they're moving to Colorado. They already found a home to be closer to their grandkids. Now you know their motivation, right? So you got there, but you took another way of getting there. Now, what do we need to do to get an accepted offer on this home is my favorite question here. This is a question that's almost never asked. What do we need to do to get an offer accepted on this home? Just ask the question. They may say, well, you need to beat 320. You need to beat 325. Well, I shouldn't say this, but here's what you have to do. You'd be surprised at what listing agents will tell you if you just ask the questions and you approach it in the right way. Not overly aggressive, but collaboratively, like you're trying to get something done in conjunction with them. Now, the next thing to do is the deep data strategy. What does that mean, the deep data strategy? That means you want to understand the players. And the way you can do that is with some deep research. I often have read that it's not the people are not the problem. It is the data you have about the people that's the problem. You need to know more about the people that you're dealing with. That's both the listing agent, if you haven't met them or you don't know what's going on with them in their lives currently, and certainly the seller who you probably have never met. So how do you do your research? The most simple way we all do it today is you Google them. You Google the sellers and you Google the listing agent. You look at their social media feeds. You dig into everything they put out, everything that's been said about them online, and you look for life change. You look for things that are happening in their lives. Is there a divorce? Is there a new birth in the family? Are they moving? Did they get a promotion? What's happening in these people's lives? We can get a sense of where the agent's at. We can get a sense of where the sellers are at. And you might find a little nugget of information in there that will help the buyers connect with the seller. And I'm going to share with you how you might use that here in just a minute. For instance, if they're a golfer, if they're a recent retiree, if they're a recent grandparent, if their kids are going to, like my child, OIT, or their kids going to plays guitar, some little nugget of information that you've dug deep and you just found this little nugget, and you might be able to reference it later. I'm going to show you how in a powerful way. Now let's talk about the offer structure though. The offer structure is super important. And so first of all, we need to start with full documentation. And full documentation means you come into the offer with you're loaded for bear, what we might call it, loaded for bear. You got all your ammo and you're not coming in halfway, you're coming in all the way. So this would start with a pre-approval letter with your offer, not a pre-qualification, pre-approval. So we need to educate our buyers at the beginning that yes, we could write an offer with a pre-qualification, but really what we prefer is a pre-approval. Here's the difference. And you lay it out for them what the difference is. Pre-approval, by the way, means the buyer's fully approved. All we have to do now is get the house approved. Pre-qualification means they look like they might get approved if they went through a full loan process, but they're not approved yet. And there's some conditions on that. And then we still also have to get the house approved. See which one's more powerful? Definitely the pre-approval. Then if they're coming in with cash, we want that proof of funds letter in hand. Now I know on a lot of offers you can say, I'll bring it in 3 days or 2 days. If I'm competing with 20 offers, I don't want to do that. Remember this word when it comes to writing offers in a multiple offer situation. The word is certainty. What you're trying to provide the client, the seller client, the listing agent, and the seller client is a sense of certainty. Absolute certainty that this sale is going to close, that when they sign your offer, they feel good that they're going to be in a position to get this deal done. And having that proof of funds letter right then is having certainty. If they happen to bring an offer in, and you hope that this doesn't happen, but if it does, where they're contingent on closing a transaction in another area, another state, even in your own state, in your own city, that you bring in some kind of escrow confirmation that shows the home is in escrow. And then here's another one that's so often forgotten but so simple, is if in your state it's common to have signed disclosures in advance. What I mean by disclosures are your disclosure statements, which where the seller reveals all the material facts about the property. If that's somewhere where you can get to it, have your buyers sign it with the offer. When they sign that with the offer, you've removed the contingency before you've even started the process. Instead of waiting for that to come in, you just give it to them right out of the gate and you say, we're just removing that contingency. Buyers have approved that disclosure statement. Now you get into the offer structure itself, the structure and some of the things you can think about there, which starts with showing the money. And so I alluded to this a little bit, but first thing you might want to do is go bigger with more earnest money to show strength. Now in my particular market, we kind of have this unwritten 1% rule, which means that we try to come in with at least 1%. So if it's a $300,000 sale, we try to come in with $3,000, $500,000, $5,000. But if you're trying to impress a seller and you've got 10 other offers, wouldn't it make sense to maybe double that amount? Or at least go 150% above what everybody else is doing? Show your strength if you have the money by coming in with a strong earnest money. Now, what some agents are doing in some super competitive markets like Seattle and LA and New York, and in some areas of other areas, even here in Southern Oregon, is what they're doing is they're making offers and making that earnest money non-refundable very early in the transaction. So for instance, I'll say upon inspection release, they will make earnest money non-refundable. They don't even wait for the appraisal, just upon inspection release, right? Another one is they, in some areas of the country, they will make that earnest money non-refundable or a portion of it at the time the seller signs it. So they'll say, we're going to make this earnest money non-refundable and we're going to give it to you. We're actually going to release it to you upon signing. So they sign the offer, they get $2,000. They sign the offer, they get $1,500 bucks. So they know you have skin in the game right out of the gate. Now that carries risk, and you have to understand and have that conversation about the risk reward of doing that. If it's going to get you in a position to win the bid, then it might be worth the risk. That's up to your buyers, and it's a conversation to have. Also, one big mistake a lot of agents make is not showing the down payment. On the offer, it's a good idea if you have a large down payment, like a 10, 15, 20% down, is to show the offer. Where you wouldn't show the down payment if it's an FHA buyer, a VA buyer, that are coming out with low down or no down, then of course you're not showing the down. But if you do have a strong down, show it off. Show it off as a strength to your buyer. And then if your buyer is coming in with cash and you're providing that proof of funds, one thing that buyers will do is they will have their lenders or their bank or their personal banker show just exactly, or just say, yes, they have these funds available. We have $360,000 available. But what some agents are doing, what some buyers are doing, is showing their whole bank account. They're just showing it all. It's like coming in and saying, hey, I'm naked. I'm going to show you everything I got. Here's how much money I got. Because what it does is it shows the strength. We actually had a buyer do that last year in my office, had $90 million. And it was for real. He actually had $90 million. In a ranch sale, he only had to prove he had $1 million or something. He showed us he had $90 million. Now, do you think that seller felt absolute certainty when he accepted that offer? Absolutely. And that transaction did close. Moving on. So limiting contingencies. So there's like 3 levels to this. The first level is we could decrease the time on inspections. If it's normal in your market to do 12-day inspections, right? We could say, we'll take that to 7. We'll take that to 5. As long as you can find an inspector that can get it done that fast. Again, this gets back to relationships and having people out there in the market that you trust and can get things done. But that due diligence period, limiting it, can set you apart just on that alone. You got 2 offers that are identical. One has a 12-day inspection. One has a 5-day inspection. I'm picking the 5-day inspection. The second is to altogether remove inspections or waive inspections. So you're just saying, hey, I'm going to waive my pest and dry rot. I'm going to waive my whole house. I'm just going to buy it, right? That's risk versus reward. Got to decide if we're willing to do that or not. The third beyond that is to state in the contract that you're willing to buy this house as is, where is, with all faults known or unknown. Now, that's a dangerous statement, okay? It is dangerous, and you certainly want to talk to your broker. You certainly want to talk to your buyers about the risk reward of that. But if we go back in time to 2008 and go back in time to 2009 and 10, where half the sales in our country were REO sales, when you signed a contract with an REO bank, They told you right there, you're buying this as is, where is, with all faults known and unknown. You got no warranty whatsoever. You're just buying that house, right? You could say, if you want to absolutely blow out everybody in the market that's trying to compete on this house, you say, hey, I'm buying this house as is. I don't care what's wrong with it. I'm buying it. That's one way to do it, and that's why some of super aggressive buyers are beating out the competition. Next is the appraisal. So this is a big issue when it comes to beating competition, because the fear point here is that the appraisal will be a renegotiation point. So we got it bid up to 325, list price was 300. Then the appraisal is going to whack it back down to 310, right? Because that's what the appraisal comes in at, gives everybody the opportunity to renegotiate. So what some savvy buyers are doing is they're removing the appraisal contingency. Again, a risk, because first of all, they'd have to have the $15,000 to fund the difference to get this to close, but it can get them in a position to win if they're comfortable paying the $325. There's limits to it, obviously. It's risk versus reward. So, but removing that appraisal contingency will lock the seller into knowing they're going to receive their full accepted price, but we just have to look at the risk. So that's, again, something to have a conversation with, and it's happening a lot of places around the country. So we also want to look at what the seller's goals are. We're often focused on the buyer's goals, but do we know the seller's goals? Hopefully we have those 5 questions that we asked the listing agent, and they told us, hey, here's the answers. We want to also dig into what's their timeline. When will your sellers like to move? And they say some sellers might want to move in 2 weeks. Some sellers might need 60 days or 90 days. In my case, when I bought my last house, the seller needed 6 months to go find replacement housing, and they wouldn't sell otherwise. And I said, you know what? No problem. I'll rent the house back to you. And we did that. They stayed in the house for 6 months. They found a replacement house, and they moved into it, and I was able to move into the house. But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have got the house. So find the timeline that meets your seller's needs, and that could be a decision maker too for whether your offer gets accepted or rejected. Next, only include what's included. Don't go after things that are not included. If they didn't include the sub-zero fridge, don't include it. If they didn't include the washer dryer, don't include it, of course. Leave those things off. And then next, if the seller, that's why the question is so important earlier that I asked, has the seller found replacement housing? The seller might get nervous at this point and start to think, whoa, I get so much activity. I get 20 offers on my house. I wonder if I'm going to be able to find another house. I don't want to be like these other 19 buyers and be, kind of out in the cold homeless. So we want to get to that question and say, have they found replacement housing? If they haven't, put into your offer some kind of contingency that says the seller is granted 30 days, 60 days to find replacement housing. And when they do, that's when contingencies will begin and the clocks will start on inspections and appraisals and everything else. So now you really make that seller feel comfortable. Again, it's collaboration with that listing agent to find out what's going to work for everybody. It's not always just about price. So here's some don'ts. 4 don'ts. Number 1, multiple offer situation, don't ask for seller concessions. Don't ask for down payment assistance or closing cost assistance unless absolutely necessary. I know sometimes you have to ask for that, but if you're going to ask for it, then come over full price so that the net is going to come to exactly what that seller's asking or even more. So you just net it out, right? But in an ideal world, you're not asking for seller concessions. 2, and we've already talked about it, don't ask for inclusions not included in the MLS. 3, don't even bother coming in under full price. Why would you do that in a multiple offer situation? And 4, don't ask the seller to adjust their timeline to meet your timeline. The seller doesn't have to. They've got 20 other offers out there waiting, right? So these are basics. Now, here is some conversations that you might have with the listing agent to get them to consider your offer above other offers, even when your offer is less than other offers. Probably over full price, but maybe you got an offer at $325, $315, and yours is like $312. List price was $300, just to give you an example. So here's what you might say. Listen, I'm sure you have some higher offers, but a couple things I'd like to share if I can. First, number 1, I want to let you know, I get deals closed. And now you're going to share the most powerful asset you own, which is your personal stats. Your personal stats really would differentiate you from the competition. So here's what you say. Last year, I closed 92% of all the transactions I put in escrow. Or maybe it's 98%, or whatever your number is. I pride myself on getting things closed. So if we work together on this sale, I promise I will take it to the finish line. I'm going to get it closed. Second, here's the bigger thing. We did a thorough buyer CMA, and I'm sure you did one as well when you listed the property. But we pushed as far as we thought we could get an appraiser to go. But we want to structure a sale that actually closes, not just throw some unrealistic number out that has no chance of getting closed, right? So if the other buyers have not waived their appraisal, if they waive their appraisal, you got no chance. But if they have not waived their appraisal and you're coming in at a reasonable price, then the listing agent may be smart enough to know, you know what, we're not going to get to 325. It's just never going to appraise. We can get to 312 or maybe 315. So let's just take the better offer here with a guy that I like and trust that's working collaboratively with me. So that's where you have that real world conversation, which is super important. So then I use the invitation technique. And the invitation technique is simply this, to say, hey, I did a buyer CMA to show how far we could reasonably stretch our offer while still getting that appraisal done, as I mentioned. If you'd be open to it, I can share it with you. Now, our goal is to get the sale closed, not just bring in an offer that will get reduced the second an appraisal comes in. I want to bring an offer that I think it's going to actually get appraised for, and that's what I think we've done here. Can I share that with you? So that's the invitation for collaboration and sharing, and invite critique. You know, you can say, hey, if you see something I do wrong here, we're all ears. I'm open to hearing whatever you have to say. But you can also use something I call the anchor point, which is helping the listing agent and arming them with data they can take back to the seller when they do the presentation. So this is giving them a little ammunition. So you might say, hey, one thing we noticed, and I'm sure you saw it when you did your CMA, was the listing across the street over 123 Johnson. Now to me, that one looked like the best comp in the market area, and I'm sure an appraiser is going to include it in their sold comps. Now that one sold for $312, and it went for $212 a square foot. Now we definitely want to get to an accepted offer, don't get me wrong. But it could be something we all end up dealing with during an appraisal, is that comp that we have out there, right? And now that makes you look like an expert. You're thinking ahead, and you're preparing everybody for the eventuality that you're going to have to deal with an appraiser unless somebody out there has waived their appraisal contingency. Now, off-menu items. What are some off-menu items? One is going to be a handwritten letter from the buyers. Now, this is something we should all be doing. If we're in a multiple offer situation, every single time we should do a handwritten letter from the buyers. Unless they have bad handwriting, then let them type it. So what do you include in a handwritten letter or a typed letter from a buyer? You have to coach them. You don't want a 5-page, dissertation. 1 page. It's 1 page. It's 3 paragraphs. That's it. No longer, no less. 3 paragraphs, 1 page. Here's what it is. It's going to, first paragraph, tell their story. We're from here. Here's what our family's all about. Here's who we are. Da, 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 da. The next is going to maybe include that deep connection point. So they may say, we did some research while we were looking at your home, and we see that your son went to OIT. Our son's planning to go there too. I would love to have an opportunity for our sons to talk to yours and see what they can learn about that experience that they've had. Something like that deep data. Or I saw that you worked at Boeing a while back, and my dad actually worked at Boeing, or my brother works at Boeing. I wonder if they know each other. That kind of deep data where they can look at that and be like, wow, they did their research, can be the difference between getting a deal done or not. Now, I know some of you might say, doesn't that sound a little creepy? Remember, this is the buyer doing it, and they're going to know the buyer is desperate to make a deal, so they're going to find it natural that they went out and did that deep research. And then the last part is to explain why they love the home so much. Here's why we have chosen your home. Here's why we fell in love with it. Here's why we'd love to raise our kids, or retire to your home, whatever it might be. That's how you end it off. Another off menu item is speed and flexibility. This is what you lay out to your listing agent, is to say, hey, listen, my buyers are on speed dial. They are ready to respond to any question or tweaks the seller might want to make to the offer. I can have them on the phone and get you an answer on any questions or negotiations that come up during your presentation instantaneously. In fact, we're going to be waiting by the phone, okay? So you let them know that it's not going to take hours, not going to take days. It's going to take literally a couple minutes to get an answer back on anything they have a question on. That's part of the collaboration, and asking for critique is invite that criticism. Say, hey, if there's something here that we can change that will make that seller feel comfortable, if you have, a comp I missed and there's something, we're a little bit off on price, let's have that conversation. We want to get to an accepted offer position. And then here's the other big thing is, of course, we never just email an offer. How many of us have received an offer just emailed with no warning? It just arrives in our inbox. That's like the worst fiduciary breach of all time, right? You are not representing your clients when you do that. When you write an offer, you need to present the offer. And in some states, we actually present the offer to the seller with the listing agent present. But at the very least, we need to be presenting it to the listing agent. Now we might do that through Zoom, but that's scheduling that time where we review the offer with the listing agent. And one key way we can do this to help everybody is to do a one-page outline of what that offer includes. We simplify it. We just give them the highlights, the bullet points of what that offer has in it so that everybody can see it really clearly. And it will help the listing agent because they're presenting 15 other offers. They'll have your bullet points right at the top. So a couple of things I want to share with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed all of that, but I don't want you to leave yet. I've got a couple of cool things I'm going to share with you. One is a real cool opportunity. A few years ago, I wrote this book called Sell Your Home in Any Market. It was a national bestseller and still can be found, everywhere. But what I'm doing is I'm giving this out for all my coaching students as a ghostwritten gift. So now all my students are going to be able to put their own name on this book and use it as a lead magnet. And so they're going to be able to create their own custom cover, put their own custom brand on it. They can rename it if they want. They can completely edit it, and I encourage them to do so. They can update the stats to fit their market, and then they can go out and lead generate to find listings. Imagine having your own book when you go out and talk to FSBOs, expired, circle marketing. Imagine having this as something that people can download when they sign up on your website, right? This is going to be marketed in so many different ways as a true lead magnet. So if you're interested in taking advantage of this, we have a free limited time access for the book on my coaching platform called The Path. And The Path is an intense coaching program. It's 4 steps, 16 weeks of daily coaching to take you from A to Z in your business, to really redesign your business, take control of your career, manage your time effectively, attract clients and stop chasing clients, and plug into really proven systems. And if you have just a minute, for those of you that are watching, I'd like to just walk you through what it looks like. And I can do that right now. And even if you're a current student, you might want to watch this so you can see the platform, because we've done a lot of major modifications. So I'm just going to log into it really quickly and show you what it looks like. Here we go. Here we go. Here we are on the website. And so this is eRealEstateCoach. So when you become a coaching student, what you would do is you log into My Courses in Coaching. Now remember, everybody gets 14 days free. And when you get the 14 days free, you get full access. This isn't a trial access. You get access to every single class on the platform. And so I'm going to log into my portal here, the Path Performance Coaching. That's not me surfing. Wish it was. We changed that out. Maybe someday I'll learn to surf like that. That would be me falling if it was me there. So this is what you see when you log in for the first time. So by the way, if you've been on the platform and you've seen our For Sale by Owner Mastery Class, our Expired Mastery Class, our Sphere of Influence Mastery Class, our Business Planning Mastery Class, or all the classes that we have, they are included in your Path membership. So you never have to invest in anything else. We give you it all here, plus way, way more. But the way we've broken this up is into 4 key steps, 4 easy steps for you to walk through. And so what you do is once you invest in the program, you go to step 1, obviously. And this would be week 1 of step 1. And every single day, sometimes there's 4 days of material, sometimes there's 5, sometimes there's 6 days of materials. The idea is you wake up in the morning, you have your cup of coffee, and you do your 10, 20 minutes of coaching. And in each coaching session, you're going to get some incredible value. I'm going to show you an example here. Here's the first day, week 1, step 1. It's called the success cycle, getting you kind of in the mental state for rebuilding your business and pivoting your business. But you would watch a video, and I'm just going to turn this on really quickly, kind of in the middle of it here. This is me coaching you, and they're all short. They're to the point. I hate coaches that go on for hours when they can get something done in 20 minutes. So we move really quickly, and every single time we're giving you nuts and bolts. This is real world, real-time data that you can use in your market that day. So as you watch the session, what you're going to do is be able to download what I've just talked about, whether it's a script, a form, a presentation, an Excel spreadsheet, a drip system, anything that's there, a letter, a marketing piece, a social marketing piece, you can download it instantaneously and begin using it in your market. For instance, on this particular lesson, there's permission-based scripts to add 22 transactions a year to your bottom line. Sounds valuable. There's another one, Live Anywhere, power scripts to close an extra 10 transactions a year. Now, as you go through each of these really quick, you can ask me a question. So you say, Jim, I went out and used this script. I had this challenge. I got this obstacle, this objection, and you can ask a question right here. As you ask that question, I'm going to respond personally. I don't have a team of other coaches like some other coaches. It's just me. I respond to every question within 24 hours. So there's interaction with me directly. And then the idea is that every day you're coming back and you're doing it again. You're taking another class and another class. So you're building your knowledge and you're building your business in real time. And we've added something recently to this platform that some of you that are watching are current members. We've added the video lesson challenges. So some agents get in the habit of being like edutained. They listen to something, but they never apply it. So we give you a lesson challenge that's paired with every video lesson you do. So when you take the success cycle, we give you a lesson challenge, which is, hey, go out and do this and tell us how it went. Go out and do that, tell us what happened, right? Create this, do this. We give you these whole lesson challenges to go through. So if you imagine going through four steps, 16 weeks, imagine me with you, 16 weeks, every single day working with you to rebuild and transform your business. Then we've added some other things here too. We have a podcast library. We have a webinar library with things that are just like this, hours and hours of information. We have live training that we've recorded, and we've just added, just last week, the direct response marketing library, which our first direct response marketing piece is this, which is our Sell Your Home in Any Market book, which you can hop in here. And when you become a member, even on the trial basis, you can download the book and totally customize it. I'm giving you permission to use it. So there you go. Now, what does this cost? It costs $147 a month after your trial period if you stay with the program. And I'm going to tell you that we have very low people that drop out of the program because they see value. I'm going to show you why they see so much value. Not in addition to the 16 weeks of coaching, we also have live coaching every single week. So let me show you what that looks like really quickly. We have live coaching on our closed Facebook group just for Path members. And we have on here 3 different live classes every week. One is our Monday Momentum. That's 30 to 40 minutes of intense coaching with me every Monday morning. Here's an example of it right here. And I'm giving you the best ideas I found for the week with scripts and technology and strategy and techniques, or excuse me, texts and all kinds of ways that we can go after this market. And then I give you actual ideas every single day. Here's 15-second video shoot for today. Here's my notes for Monday Momentum, which includes, as you can see, all kinds of scripting in here that you can use in your marketplace. On top of that, on Wednesdays, we do something called our Wednesday workshop. This week, we had our social media expert, John Reinhardt, came in and talked to us about what's called social media kits. He gave us an intense course on social media. And so we do that every Wednesday. We're giving you tech ideas on our Wednesday workshops. And then on Fridays, we do a mastermind session with a top producing real estate agent, top 1% generally, and we give them a Q&A, all small closed sessions where we can ask questions, we can get deep, we can ask really granular questions about how they built their business over the years. So tremendous value. I'd love to see every one of you sign up for it. And so to go one step further than this, for those of you guys that sign up today, all you needed to go is go over to eRealEstateCoach, click on the path, and you can invest in it. Get that first 14 days free. And when you're signing up today, you're going to see you can also get another 25% off your first month. So we're trying to make this really low barrier for entry. And then you can download the book and you can start working on transformation in your business. I hope you guys enjoyed this class, and I hope to see you again in the future. If I can answer any questions for you at all, please always reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. You can also find us everywhere on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube at eRealEstateCoach. We'd love to see you subscribe to all of our platforms. If I can help you, let me know. Have a great day and good selling.